This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir concluded his visit to the Darfur region with a speech in the Al-Junaynah area west of the region. He renewed his promise to bring peace and development into the province. Meanwhile, the Sudanese Minister of Justice said that foreign experts had been invited to examine the judicial system and its capacity to try the indicted individuals on the Sudanese territories.
الرئيس السوداني عمر البشير في محطته الثالثة مدينة الجنينة جدد التزامه بتحقيق السلام في دارفور.
The city of Junaynah was the third stop on the Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir's tour. While there, he renewed his commitment to bring peace into Darfur, saying that safety in the region is the prime concern and the strategic aim which he is working towards. He said that his call to establish peace includes all Sudanese forces, as well as the armed groups in Darfur. He promised to develop the region and return the refugees and the displaced back to their villages. He hinted at the rejection of any kind of external interference in the issues of Sudan. Echoed in his speech were slogans criticizing the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, Luis Moreno Ocampo, and the United States. This led to the U.S. charge d'affaires in Khartoum to express his disappointment yesterday over what he called the promises of Bashir, rather than taking the practical actions to defuse the crisis as the international community had hoped for. According to some people, the messages expressed by the Sudanese president were an incentive to opening a new path which guarantees a solution in the region. Others, however, considered the event as no more than promises, which Bashir did not support by a plan of action to come out of the crisis. However, in an active step that corresponded with the conclusion of Bashir's visit to Darfur, Khartoum said that it will invite foreign experts to study the Sudanese judicial system to discern its capacity to try the people accused of war crimes. The invitation was in fact delivered to experts from the United Nations, the African Union, and the Arab League. Khaled Uwais, Al Arabiya.
Khaled Uwais, Al Arabiya.
Joining us from Cairo is Dr. Hani Raslan, the head of Sudanese Unity in the Nile Basin and Al-Kharam Center for Strategic Studies. Welcome. The Sudanese president visited Darfur and promised peace and development. How do you assess this first step in light of the latest crisis in Darfur?
I think that the visit was aimed at achieving two main objectives. The first aim was to send a clear message and a practical demonstration that the situation is stable in Darfur, that it is safe, and that the accusations of Ocampo about genocide are unfounded. Among the huge masses who welcomed Bashir were the tribes of Al-Fore and the Zagwa Mazalit, who were mentioned in Ocampo's accusations. They gave public speeches by authentic representatives of the tribes. One of them was the grandson of Sultan Ali Binar, the most important chief of Al-Fore tribe in current history. The second aim was to prepare the environment in Darfur for the next initiative by announcing a pardon of the accused children in the justice and equality movement during the Durman raid. He also wanted to give the message internally and externally that there is a forthcoming resolution. All of this was part of the preparation, especially that before the visit, Sudan re-established relations with Chad. This was also accompanied by what the report just mentioned about the internal judicial system.
Ghulam Reza Qazadeh, the head of the Iranian Atomic Organization, met with Mohammad Baradei, the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, to discuss the Iranian nuclear program.
Meanwhile, the Iranian president said that the participation of the U.S. in the Geneva talks is a step towards acknowledging Iran's right to own nuclear technology.
The Iranian president sent two mixed messages to the U.S. and other leading countries that are concerned with his country's nuclear program. He sent a message to the United States praising its participation in the latest talks in Geneva. Ahmadinejad praised the American negotiator William Burns and his politeness. According to Ahmadinejad, Burns showed that he respects the Iranian nation.
With this, you, the Americans, have taken a positive step towards acknowledging the rights of the Iranian nation, towards justice and improving the United States' reputation in the world, and towards winning over the Iranian people. I advise you not to destroy this positive step.
Ahmadinejad sent another message reflecting Iran's persistence on its position pertaining to its nuclear program.
We are ready to negotiate with anyone. However, those who want to negotiate with us have no right to place conditions on us. If conditions are to be made, then Iranians are the ones to make them.
The statements of the Iranian president came after the latest round of negotiations between Iran and the United Nations Security Council's 5 permanent members, plus Germany. These countries have given Tehran 2 months to respond to the incentives that were offered to Tehran in exchange for giving up uranium enrichment. The United States has given Iran 2 options: cooperate with the 6 leading countries or confrontation. The Democratic presidential candidate, Barack Obama, supports this policy, which is a clear reversal of his previous position in which he called for using the policy of diplomacy with Tehran.
Gets a nuclear weapon.
If Iran develops a nuclear weapon, this will lead to an arms race in the Middle East. This will not only pose a danger to Israel, it will also mean the rules of the game will change pertaining to our national security. We must do everything to prevent this from happening.
While the position of Tehran continues to be different from that of the Western countries, American ships continue to carry their patrol missions in the Gulf in a clear show of power. Among these ships is the USS Abraham Lincoln, whose leader said that the objective of his crew is to keep this port open for international ships.
Welcome back. Military operations against the rebels of the Kurdistan Workers' Party, PKK, are ongoing. The Turkish army announced today that its fighter planes struck 13 targets belonging to Kurdish separatists in northern Iraq yesterday. The army added that it is still trying to investigate the losses amongst the rebels. Since last December, the Turkish army carried out about 20 raids against PKK locations. In February of last year, the army carried out a week-long ground operation accompanied by airstrikes. According to Ankara, there were more than 2,000 rebels hiding in that area.
U.S. military prosecutors have played a video showing a former driver for Osama bin Laden denying any links to al-Qaeda. In the first U.S. military trial at Guantanamo Bay, Salim Hamdan insists in the video that he works for an Islamic charity, but the prosecution also produced photographs of Hamdan carrying an assault rifle, saying it disproves his claim that he wasn't a fighter. Monica Villamazar reports from Guantanamo Bay.
The prosecution argued that Hamdan was part of Osama bin Laden's inner circle and had knowledge of terrorist plots. The prosecution's evidence included interrogations of Hamdan done in coercive ways and hearsay evidence.
We do not believe the evidence will show. We do not believe that the government will be able to meet that burden of proof. That's where we are.
His defense argues he was just bin Laden's driver and worked for a salary to support his family. The government wants to show that Hamdan was also a key al-Qaeda player who provided material support to terrorists.
Every piece of evidence taken together will show the two main things: that he was a conspirator, that he aligned himself with others in al-Qaeda in furtherance of their aims.
The 37-year-old has pled not guilty. He was transferred to Guantanamo in 2002 and was only given access to a lawyer in 2004.
Camp Justice in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba hosts the legal complex of this American military base. They have built a courtroom here to try 60 detainees. Salim Ahmed Hamdan's case is the first war crime tribunal since World War II.
Hundreds of detainees have been locked up without charge, many in solitary confinement, and camps like this one where they face long interrogations and, according to testimonies, have also faced torture. If convicted, Hamdan faces life in prison. As this military trial moves on, human rights lawyers say it's likely to face growing criticism for not granting procedural rights to those it accuses, rights customary in U.S. civil courts. Monica Villamizar, Al Jazeera, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba.
The decision of the British government to ban the military wing of Lebanese Hezbollah came into effect. This decision was approved by the British House of Commons and the House of Lords.
The British government managed to pass its decision in both the House of Commons and the House of Lords. Now collecting money and encouraging the military activities of Hezbollah are considered punishable crimes in Britain. Gordon Brown's government justified its decision based on information indicating that Hezbollah is involved in what it called supporting terrorism in Palestine and Iraq. Hezbollah is also accused of training and supporting extremist groups like the Mahdi army in Iraq.
هناك ما يكفي من الأدلة لفرض هذا الحظر على الجناح العسكري مثلا مواطن.
There is sufficient evidence to justify banning Hezbollah's military wing.
كان عدو لحزب من خلال تقريبا 24 سنة.
For example, a Lebanese national named Ali Musa Dakduk, who was a member of Hezbollah for 24 years, was sent to Iraq to help Shiite militias in carrying out military operations in coordination with some Iranian elements.
عمليات عسكرية بتنسيق مع عناصر إيرانية.
However, British officials reiterated that the new legal measure only targets the military wing of Hezbollah. It does not apply to the political, social, or humanitarian activities of Hezbollah.
Britain realizes that Hezbollah is an inseparable part of Lebanese society. Therefore, it will be a positive step if Hezbollah integrates itself in the political process and becomes part of the national unity government, which was formed a few weeks ago. It is Britain's view it is not appropriate for Hezbollah to play a role outside of Lebanon.
The British law allows banned organizations to appeal the government's decision to the Ministry of Interior, and if the appeal is rejected, the banned organization can then appeal to a special legal court. It is not clear if the British measure against Hezbollah will succeed. In the past, Britain faced difficulties with other organizations because it is hard to differentiate between the military and political wings of certain organizations. Ramia Karam, Future TV, London.
أصيب 6 مواطنين برصاص الاحتلال الإسرائيلي جراء قمع قوات الاحتلال.
6 Palestinians were wounded by the bullets of the Israeli occupation forces during a demonstration in the town of Nitlin, west of Ramallah. The occupation forces fired a barrage of tear gas bombs and rubber bullets at the demonstrators, who came out to protest the confiscation of their land, where Israel is trying to build the apartheid wall. Elsewhere in the West Bank, 2 Palestinian youth were wounded in the Balata refugee camp east of Nablus. This news comes after the Israeli occupation forces carried out major sweeps, including the arrest of 12 residents of the Aska refugee camp east of Nablus. According to security sources, the occupation forces invaded the city of Nablus from the area of Janid, near the Ipa checkpoint, where they conducted raids and searches of several homes and damaged their contents. In another development, the so-called Israeli High Court has given the lawyer of a Jerusalemite family until July 20th to file supporting documents in connection with the previous request to stop a pending eviction order against the family. In response to a request filed by the defense attorney, the court granted an extension to Al-Kurd family to stay in their home. Al-Kurd's home is among the 28 homes which the occupation authority is planning to seize and destroy.
تخطط سلطات الاحتلال للاستيلاء عليها.
The escalating Israeli security measures implemented in the West Bank, which include the demolishing of homes, arrests, and closures of health, media, and civic institutions, have become the occupation's policy despite regional and international criticism. Under hasty justifications and shady excuses, such as the absence of building permits, the Israeli Occupation Authority continues to carry out random security measures against the Palestinian residents of Jerusalem. The Occupation Authority recently demolished several residential homes in the towns of Al-Aisawiyah and Beit Hanina in occupied Jerusalem. In addition, the so-called Israeli High Court issued a warrant authorizing the occupation police to hand eviction notices to more than 20 residents from the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood in occupied Jerusalem. The Al-Kurd family is one of many Jerusalemite families who are facing eviction and daily harassment by the Occupation Authority and herds of Jewish settlers. Meanwhile, dozens of prominent legal and national leaders visited the Al-Kurd home in East Jerusalem to voice their support and express solidarity with the family.
They began to make offers for the house. They told my son they would give him enough money to buy the entire land of Beit Hanina. However, my son rejected the offer. After my son rejected the offer, a man by the name of Shimuni, I believe he was their lawyer, came to me, and he said, "Listen, Kamel, instead of throwing you and your children out of the house, take a suitcase full of money, more than $10 million, which is enough to buy the entire land of Beit Hanina." Yes, this is how low he stooped. I told him this is the only house I know. I was married in this house, and I will be buried in it.
The objective of our visit is to express support and solidarity with the family of Al-Kurd, who is facing eviction and harassment from the settlers. Several Zionist and Jewish organizations have recently exerted a tremendous amount of efforts to expand the settlement campaign in order to Judify Jerusalem, seize its land, and evict the Arab Palestinian residents from their homes and properties.
The systematic policy adopted by the occupation in occupied Jerusalem has intensified after the Israeli Authority completed the construction of the apartheid wall, which intends to isolate the city from its neighbors and forcefully evict the Jerusalemites from their city.
UN Chief Ban Ki-moon has expressed deep concerns about Israel's plan to build a new settlement in the occupied West Bank. He has called on the Israeli regime to stop all settlement expansion plans. Israel's defense ministry has revived a plan to build a new settlement in Maskyot, located in the Jordan Valley. The ministry committee has now approved the construction of 20 housing units there. The Israeli regime had earlier cancelled the plan under international pressure and promised not to resume the construction job there. Settlements in the West Bank are considered illegal under international law. The move would be yet another blow to U.S. efforts to broker a peace deal between the Israelis and Palestinians. Palestinian officials have strongly condemned the decision, with chief negotiator Saeb Erekat saying it will destroy peace efforts in the region.
Still in that part of the world, over 20 Israeli settlers have attacked a Palestinian village in the West Bank and did damage to property. Palestinian police said the Israeli attackers cut off electricity wires in Burin village near Nablus. They also smashed dozens of cars and windows. As the aggression continued, Israeli soldiers started shooting as they arrived on the scene. But no casualties have been reported. Israeli police spokesman denied that the Israeli settlers had entered the Palestinian village. He said the Israelis had been protesting a plan to demolish an unauthorized structure near Yitjar. The Israeli army withdrew its troops and military equipment from Yitjar in 2006.
Now, Russia has opposed setting a deadline for Iran to respond to Western proposals on its nuclear program. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Iran should not be pressurized for a deadline or dragging out the process. He made the comments at the ASEAN ministerial meeting in Singapore. Washington had given Iran 2 weeks to reply to the proposals of the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council plus Germany following Saturday's meeting in Geneva. Iran has repeatedly said it is open to dialogue but will not give up its right to peaceful nuclear energy.
Well, more on that. The head of Iran's Atomic Energy Organization says his meeting with the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency was positive. Our correspondent Eva Manasieva has sent this report on the story.
Iran expects to no longer be a central topic at the International Atomic Energy Agency. According to the Iranian Vice President and head of the Iranian Atomic Energy Organization, Gholam Reza Ghazadeh, Iran is no longer a special case for the agency. This in turn signifies that there would be no more reports on Iran at the agency board meetings, that Iran would no longer be a special agenda item, and it also implies that the United Nations Security Council is not the right venue to which Iranian case has to be referred.
I believe we are now in normal routine interaction with the agency, and I emphasize the cooperation that has been established and the joint work done so far.
Vice President Ghazadeh also said that despite the impatience and threats from the other camp, the 6 world powers trying to coerce Iran into renouncing its nuclear rights, Iran expects both sides to meet in the middle. Finding common ground, he said, required engagement from both sides. He, however, reiterated that Iran has done and is doing more than necessary to prove its goodwill in resolving the nuclear standoff. The Iranian vice president also emphasized that the package of incentives which Iran has sent to the 6 world powers contains excellent ideas and said he expects the other side to study it carefully. So what will be the next step in resolving the nuclear standoff? I asked Vice President Ghazadeh.
As I already explained, we exchanged our non-papers and either side now should work on them till we reach a point when we have only one paper, that is an agreement, and then we can continue our dialogue based on it. The negotiations started with high capacity, and I think many things could be dealt with.
So the message was sent very clear. Iran repeats its readiness for dialogue and expects the other side in the negotiations to participate constructively. Iran, that has appeared stronger after the week in Geneva talks, is now saying the issue of the so-called weaponization is closed. Now Tehran is expecting the 6 world powers to sit down and carefully consider Iran's proposals for resolving nuclear differences. Eva Manasieva, Press TV, Vienna.
Well, earlier I asked Iran's ambassador to the IAEA to give us more details about Iran's response to the 5+1 group's proposals. Mr. Sultania also talked about Iran's current situation in the IAEA.
I just want to draw your attention that after both packages were given, there were 2 non-papers given in Tehran, also in Geneva, the exchange of 2 non-papers, and as His Excellency Mr. Ghazadeh today said, that this is expected and hoped that these 2 will merge to one single common non-paper in order to take the further steps.
NATO says its forces would not enter Pakistan, but reserve the right to gun down militants in self-defense.
More attention is necessary for a development which is critical for the stability of Afghanistan, it is critical for the stability of Pakistan, and it is also critical given the fact that in the 21st century you cannot distinguish internal and external security.
NATO Secretary General Abdou Schaffer said a stable Afghanistan and Pakistan are important to global security, and a more regional approach is needed to ensure that safety. Cross-border attacks against NATO forces in Afghanistan have killed several foreign troops in recent weeks. Afghan President Hamid Karzai said his country was struggling against terrorism, and some areas near the Pakistan border were under serious threat. Karzai accused its neighbor, Pakistan, of training terrorists and sending them into his country, a claim that Pakistani officials have rejected.
Obama has criticized the common European view of holding the US responsible for wrong global policies. US presidential hopeful Barack Obama warned that humanity is facing a dangerous turning point and partnership was the only means of survival. Addressing a mass rally of Germans, he called for tearing down walls between people of different races and faiths. He said the US was unable to defeat global challenges alone. He called on Europe for more funding and an increase in troops to fight insurgency-led violence in Afghanistan. The German Chancellor Angela Merkel has said her country would resist any pressure for more troops.
الآلات الموسيقية في العراق، الآلات الموسيقية الشرقية.
Iraq is well known for its Eastern musical instruments, especially the oud. Iraqis are not only known as the best oud makers, but also the best oud players.
ويعتبر العود ذو الموروث الحضاري.
This has made the oud a permanent ambassador of the land of the two rivers.
In his small shop located in the eastern gate of western Baghdad, Nasha is surrounded with walls of pictures that go back in history 60 years. During this time, Nasha has made the making of the oud his profession in a country where the best quality ouds are made.
My father, Hashim Baghdadi, opened this place 60 years ago. I have been working in this shop since I was 7 years old. I have been working here for 40 years. Famous Arab singers from the Gulf, like Abdullah Rashid, and the Lebanese artist, Wadi' al-Safi, bought their ouds from me.
Nasha is one of 4 other Iraqis that still make ouds. Even oud makers were subjected to threats by extremists, which made this hard and rare profession even harder.
I used to open the shop in the morning and stay here until 11 p.m. But now the security situation is not very good. I leave by 5 p.m. There are a lot of problems. Very few people can do this profession. This is not like carpentry, where one makes a bed or sofa. Making one oud requires precise measurements. There are specific ways in which ouds have to be made, both externally and internally. We call the precise measures inside the oud jisur. Also, the lighter the oud, the better the sound.
The parts that are used in the making of the oud include silk lines and the wood of walnut trees, all of which must be put together in a very artistic manner. The long experience that Iraqi oud makers have has made these ouds the most popular among the finest Arab musicians. This Iraqi instrument that sings of sentiment and cultural heritage has become a permanent ambassador, attesting to the glory of Iraq. There are high demands on Iraqi ouds, especially from the Gulf. At one point, more than 90% of Iraqi-made ouds were exported to the Gulf, but now the demand has decreased by 20%. Iraqi oud makers are still making instruments that can play the softest tunes. Unlike the rest of the Iraqis, they can escape the threat of explosives by playing on the sensitive strings of their ouds. For Al Madar program, Duha Al-Haddad, Abu Dhabi channel.
Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/Mosaic. The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic video podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.